Three, two, one. Hi guys, welcome back to my podcast. I am Avery. And today I have Christina Sirgun Powers joining us today to talk about Ayurveda. So here I'll give her the reins.
Hi, thank you so much, Avery. I feel really honored to be a guest on your podcast. I'm excited to talk about Ayurveda. It's basically the science and knowledge of life. So it goes back, it's a Sanskrit word, and when you break it down, Ayur means life, Veda means, or sorry, I had that backward. Veda is the life, and I hope you can edit that out, maybe.
You're good.
So it's the science of life. Ayur is life. Veda is the knowledge or the sacred knowledge of it. And so this is going back to texts that are 4,500, 5,000 years old, and that's where the original study comes from. But what we find out and I have 3.5 years of academic and internship to go deeper into those texts, what we find is that it's applicable into our modern day contemporary lives. And that's because this biological system really hasn't changed in all of that time. We are evolving, and so the way in which we work with it is evolving.
Oh my goodness, that is so cool. I did a little research before we came on, and I was even blown away to kind of read this and how I've never heard of this before. And I thought it was super cool, and I was like, yeah, I can't wait to learn more and to talk about it. So what got you started in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching yoga, and I was teaching it, as we mentioned before, in high schools and designing yoga and meditation programs since 2003, I believe. And I kind of heard about Ayurveda as I was doing my teacher's training and along the road of teaching. And I thought, oh yeah, that's really cool. Diet, herbs, okay, I kind of got that. I don't really need any extra. That was kind of my mind thinking. And then, life kind of went on. And I was in education, so I was an English teacher. I was eventually
Mm.
administrator in high schools in Los Angeles, kind of high pressure
Whoa.
job. I
Oh
was
yeah,
a
definitely.
single mother of two. And I remember one of my colleagues saying, I don't know how you do it. You show up perfectly for everything. And I did, because I was just a very high level functioning person in stress, but I was burning myself out completely. So I
Hmm.
was, thought I was eating well, yoga, practice, meditation. I thought I was doing all those things, and it was kind of keeping me going. But in the meantime, I was burning out this whole entire body system. So, fast forward, I won't tell you the whole story, but I ended up in the emergency room with intestinal diagnosed disease. It was diverticulitis. I had never
Oh,
heard of that, so I had to go, just like you, do my research on it. Well,
yeah.
what in the world is this? And I didn't meet any of the criteria which modern medical systems say these are the type of person that's going to get it. It's usually the type of person who
Mm,
is eating high fat, heavy meat diet, highly
yeah.
junk food type of diets, doesn't have exercise. I'm like, I don't fit any of those categories. What in the
Yeah.
world is going on? And then, it turns out, high stress. So I, kind of did all that. I didn't like what the medical profession was saying. This is what you need to do, which involves
Hmm.
medications and then eventually surgeries.
Yeah.
But I just think there's a different way. So I just kind of dove
Yeah.
into self-healing. And once I
Yeah.
came across Ayurveda, I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. I've been exposed to these kinds of seminars before. Let me
Hmm.
dive deeper. The deeper I dove, the more I did the healing. And then I eventually,
Healed.
rebooted my whole system. I said, wait a minute, this is what I want to do. This is really what I'm meant to.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher by nature, and this is something I want to share to teach other people how to keep their lives from getting to the point where I was, or if they get to the point where I was,
How to go
how do they
about it?
restore? Because the underlying Ayurveda, I think of it as the manual for operating this human body, physically, mentally, emotionally, and eventually spiritually. This
Hmm.
whole being. And if you can learn the operation manual, then you're going to bypass a lot of the physical
Mm,
diseases,
yeah.
pain, suffering that we, typically experience, which, sleep, eating disorders, eating, problems that cause, elimination, dysfunction of the whole mental, emotional breakdown, anxiety, all of that stuff, it
Yeah.
stems from those imbalances. And I can, touch upon a few of those. So,
Yeah, no,
The
that
long,
sounds.
that's the short version. I hope that was short.
Oh yeah, totally. It gave me the knowledge we all needed. Um, that from just hearing that, that sounds like so cool. And I love that each human, each person can have their own perspective of how they want to live their lives and how they want to go about it. I'm very open with all that stuff. Just because I don't go about it like that doesn't mean that I'm not open to hearing about it and maybe keeping in mind some of the practices. So, oh, I'm so, it's so cool to hear that about these things that you've never heard of before. Um, but yeah, when I did some research, that's practically what came up. How we're made of like five basic elements based in like, I don't know. It's just I don't even want to try explaining it what I found because I feel like I'm totally gonna mess it up. Um, but I think, yeah, it's believed that your chances of getting sick and the health issues you developed are linked to the balance of your doshas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can kind of, go from there because
Yeah,
if someone has ever heard of Ayurveda, they've heard of doshas. And then if someone hasn't, even still, they're like, what in the world does that mean? And that's another
yeah.
Sanskrit word for kind of categorizing. And when you said the five elements, it really breaks it down. And that's one of the reasons why the other thing that people commonly associate with Ayurveda is plants. Like, oh, that's herbs. You take a lot of herbs, you have a certain diet, that's Ayurveda. That is like the fraction of what
Yeah,
it
the
is.
one elephant, the one
But
element of
but
it.
on the basic level, that's kind of how it works. So let's say it's all about, you hear about yoga, it's bringing in the balance, and and yoga and Ayurveda are like the two foundational. Let's think of it as a triangle. They are two of
Mhm,
the three foundational pieces of Ayurveda. And if you want to take it deeper into kind of like the spiritual level, and when people
mhm.
talk about healing karma, healing your repetitive
Yeah.
pain habits and behaviors, that's kind of the third rung. But when you talk about the basic, how this human life can function, highly function, happy, healthy,
Mhm,
joyful, experience life every day instead of feeling tired, lethargic, instead of being activated by something that somebody says, by activated by something that happened in the past, or worrying about the future, or
mhm.
constantly having physical issues.
So
So
everything with me.
yeah, I mean, everything with every human being, we're all experiencing the same imbalances. It's just in different ways. What pushes
Yes.
us? So, for example, let's say we get those five elements. We think about them as fire, air, earth, water, and ether,
Mhm.
space. And so,
Yep.
really, what that means is fire. It's heat. What generates heat within the body, and what's bringing systemic heat? So, in the body, it's the digestive system, which is generating the heat and the energy. Outside of the body, it's the seasonal changes. So those have huge, profound effects on the way you function mentally, physically, emotionally. Okay.
That is so cool.
When you think about, we said fire, air. Air is, we think of as cool and movement. So within the body, where that resides, and it's also has to do with what's moving through the body. Thoughts are constantly moving and circulating, right? Your blood is constantly moving and circulating. So how is it moving? Or you have excess over thoughts? Do you have a thought loop that's generating constantly, constantly, constantly? Is the mind slowed down to focus, like let's say on your studies, what you're doing, or can you not totally focus, right? Does that make any sense right there?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Okay. And then, like, how is the blood flowing? Is the blood flowing slow? Do you feel lethargic? Do you feel cold? Is the blood flowing hot? And you feel hot, you feel excess heat. Um, and then on the outside, movement is in traffic, in travel. Do we have too much of that stuff going on? Are we constantly
Yeah.
moving somewhere, in the bus, eating, in the car, eating, constantly back and forth? And then again, the environment, is it too cold? Is it too hot? In this case with air, it's too much coolness, too much cold.
Yeah.
Water, so fire, air, earth. Water is, we're talking about the five elements. Water, it's the fluids of the body inside, the fluids and the flow of the body. And that's how a disease moves and flows through the body, is in those fluids. And do we have too much fluid buildup? And then, are we getting enough hydration? Is it too dry? Or do we have swelling that happens? A lot of
Mhm.
times in the summertime, people will naturally swell.
Yeah.
And then, what is the environment? Is it a moist, humid environment, or is it a dry environment, like with the weather pattern? So fire, air, earth, water. Earth. Okay, I didn't get to earth. So fire, what did I say? Fire, air, earth. So earth is basically what we are made up. It's our muscle tissues, it's our fat tissues, it's the bone tissues, it's all of those tissues within the body. And it's through the foods that we intake, right?
Whoa.
Through the foods that we intake. And then earth, it's, basically we live on the planet earth.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
soil, that's how everything grows. Let's see, fire, air, earth. Oh, I talked about water. That was the one I skipped.
Space.
And ether.
Ether.
Fire, air, earth, water, and ether is space. Ether is the space.
Okay.
The internet, what's it working on? It's space. It's moving through space. When you go outside of this planet, it's the space. So it's within the body, the space that we inhabit, like within the cells. If you are, remember your science classes, when you go
Yeah.
inside on a cellular level, there's more space within this body than there is matter.
Yep. Oh
That's
yeah.
Yeah, so we have much more space inside. And when we have too much space, and you've heard of that word before, spacey. They just can't catch a thought. It's like, ooh, they go from thought
Yeah.
to thought. That's how it translates in the nervous system. When it's way too like, I can't really be functional. I'm not really here. I'm not really grounded.
Yeah.
It means. So that's kind of the basics. And so when you take a look at all of those, we call 10 qualities. We're looking at the
Hmm.
qualities. Is there too much heat coming into the body, outside of the body? Is there too much air, too much coldness? Is there too much movement? Is the mind going through too much movement? And there are 10, we call them 10 pairs of opposites. And
Hmm.
if there's too much heat, we're going to bring it in coolness. If there's too much air, there's too much movement, we're going to bring in things with the body that brings more stability in what you eat, or in, let's say we're giving herbs to help with that,
Hmm.
or practices or daily things that you're doing. And when there's an imbalance, it pushes it into a physical system.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
gonna stop it right there, because I could just keep going and talking. So did that help understanding the five elements, what that means?
Yes, that is so cool that, oh my goodness, I could hear you talk about that for hours. That's just, it's mind blowing that there's, I don't know, there's this you've learned this, right? Through study and call it, yeah, the ancient, I don't know, all
Yeah,
that.
it's a school. I actually, there is a school. There's many schools around the United States that are certified. It's the California College of Ayurveda is where I studied, and it's the oldest school in California for the study of Ayurveda. And I did a year internship working in the
Mhm.
clinic with patients, doctors of Ayurveda. And then I did my thesis. I had to go in, and I actually picked diverticulitis, so I had to
Yeah.
research what and compare medicine, and then go back and look at the ancient journals. And believe it or
Hmm.
not, these are in the ancient texts, where I can look up all the symptoms of diverticulitis. I can look up what their course of regenerating the cells are, and then I can compare it with the Western medicine. So it's in no way to say, Western medicine is not good, and it's no way to say
Yeah.
East, this comes from the East.
Yes.
Vedic medicine is best. They work together, because what
Hmm.
what Ayurvedic medicine does, and I'm a clinical Ayurvedic
Hmm.
specialist, so I'm certified. People would see me as a primary care. People would see me
Yeah.
in addition to their medicines. Um, what it is it's restorative. So
Hmm.
the practices get the body to the natural body rhythms. Like, that's what I do, is I help
Hmm.
people get natural body rhythms, because they're out of rhythm for sure, with
Yes.
how they sleep, how they wake, what they eat, and when they eat,
Hmm.
and when they eliminate. Those are the basic ways in which everybody goes out of balance. And then so they have the medicine
Yeah.
industry come in and said, oh, we know people are out of balance in that way. Here, let me give you a medicine that will block and stop. And then it has all kinds of other symptoms that
Okay.
come up, because
Yes.
when you block something from doing its job, then you have what we call as overflow, and then it has
Yes.
diversification, and then it lands in another tissue that's weak.
Hmm.
Ayurveda works to prevent that. It's a preventative measure. But if you go into disease and then you want to reestablish your body's functioning system, it restores and rejuvenates the tissues. And so I have patients who are on a slew of meds for different,
Yeah.
anything high cholesterol to celiac to IBS to, lots of things.
Yeah.
And I may work with their medical, line of whatever their doctor has said, to help them come off the meds, to help them reestablish, and then eventually um, their systems have, rejuvenated.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, from my standpoint, I'm still young, clearly. I have a lot of living to do, but I've seen all these ways of how doctors try to treat certain things and how it ends up stopping that but causing a whole nother problem in the body that you have to now tackle, and then it keeps going and going on. And then I've seen uh, people who've done a whole other treatment, like it could be this, it could be, and there's so much types of medicine, like not Western is like the ones with the dog. I don't know how to explain it, but Eastern
Yeah,
is like,
they call it allopathic medicine. So what it's doing,
mhm,
it's treating the symptom. It's not treating the root cause. So
yeah,
Ayurvedic medicine, like I design formulas. So I'm going to design a formula that's tailored uniquely to you. Like I said, is it, trying to bring more balance to too much heat, too much coolness, all of that stuff.
mhm,
Every single herb has those qualities. And what season is it in? I'm going to design it and tailor it, and it's going to have several herbs that could work with a single herb. Where the Western medicine, they're either going to give you a high, a low dosage. That's kind of
yes,
the way and it's going to block something, or it's going to push your system to do something that your system isn't ready to do. And
yep,
that in those cases, emergency medicine, they're outstanding. If life, limb, all of those things, they are immediate and they can recover you. Ayurveda is not going to go in there, and if you've got a limb, torn off or something like that,
yes,
it's not going to work in that way. But what it is going to do is sustain your life so that you don't have disease and overflow. And if you happen to have disease overflow, disease manifestation, it's going to restore that tissue. And it takes longer. But
yeah,
what the outcome is you're not going to be on meds for your whole life. Where if you're coming in,
mm,
and that's where the allopathic medicine falls lower, is that whatever meds they got you on, you're going to be on for life, and then you're going to have additional meds because it's causing your system to overflow something or to stop what your system is doing. That's where the
mm,
when you see that long list, if you've ever been on medications,
yes,
what side effects are. It's because it has an effect on different systems of the body. Where
yes,
Ayurveda works differently, and there's some wisdom that for people to kind of understand how we go wrong. There are 7 body systems,
hmm,
and whatever you eat, it takes. I'm going to give you an average number because every person is unique. It might take 6.25
yeah,
days for you, and it might take 7.25 days for somebody else. But the average number for what you eat in one meal to reach the whole body system is 7 days. And there is a hierarchy of the systems that get the nourishment. If
hmm,
your system has got a problem in the digestive system with actually metabolizing the food and absorbing the
hmm,
food, it's only going to reach one tissue. It's not going to get to the lower tissue. So the first tissue that's going to get any kind of nourishment is the fluids, and then next is the blood. After
mm.
that is the muscle tissue. So whatever's left over from that one meal, let's say that one piece of pizza you ate,
Mhm,
that nourishment is going to go for day one. It's going to go into the fluids of the body.
mhm.
That's one reason why some people will feel like, oh, I feel kind of puffy.
Bloated.
Right? Bloated is different. Bloated's in the intestines. Bloated's in,
Okay.
but in the like like, oh, I feel kind of puffy.
Mhm,
that that's where the nourishment goes. Then it goes to the blood, and we can kind of feel that hot feeling. That's day 2. Day 3, it's going to go to the muscle tissues. Am I building muscle? But that's if it's good quality nourishment. we
yeah,
can
it's
build
not,
we can
yeah,
build tissue that's poor quality. We can build
yes,
tissue that's high quality. Fourth tissue is fat tissue. It's going to go into the fat layer. And we need the fat layer. We
yeah.
absolutely need that for protection. We need that for warmth. We need it for metabolism.
Blubber, like I like to call it.
Right. We need that tissue, and we need it to be high quality.
Mhm,
The fifth tissue it's going to go into is the bone tissue. Whatever it is we ate, if it didn't have high quality nourishment, it did not get to the bones. And this is one reason why women, as they age,
Weak bones.
osteoporosis, that's one reason, is because it's not getting the systemic nourishment over time. Let's see, the sixth
Mm.
tissue is the reproductive tissues.
Oh,
Extremely important, because this is where all our energy comes from. You don't
yeah,
know, you're in the age range where you have so much energy from your reproductive tissues because they're new adult reproductive
yeah.
tissues. I know, you've, maybe 3, 4 years, but it's new tissue. And so it's super high energy for, young females and males. But once we get into the 20s, it happens in early 20s. If we haven't had nourishment into, at least getting to the sixth tissue, this is when people get chronic fatigue. And then what they're in college, what do? Stimulants, those high power energy drinks, the coffees. And I know they're doing it younger.
24, yeah, 24-hour
Oh, they're doing it
energy.
in high school,
Oh,
because
yeah,
I was teaching
Monster.
high school, and I was like astonished that these kids were already getting into the coffee, and then they were up late at night doing the gaming, or
Yeah,
studying, whatever. So that's where the system really starts to go bad, and you see the rundown by the time they're in their 20s, where the
yeah.
system.
Oh my goodness.
The last tissue is the nervous system. And this is
Hmm.
where, if you haven't had nourishment all the way to the nervous system, this is where you're going to get anxiety, overwhelm, you're going to get panic attacks, you're going to get depression, you're going to get all of those things that happen in the mind.
Oh my goodness. That is crazy. For me personally, I fall under chronic pain. I have hyper mobility and I have POTS. Um, and I do struggle with PMDD. Are you familiar with that?
PMDD. Can you give me the acronym?
Yeah. It's premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Yes, I remember that in my academic studies. I don't focus on menopause and pregnancy. Those are the kind of the areas I do, but the
Yeah.
that I don't, but I do remember that. So
So
yes,
mine is the overproduction of my hormones that make that again, it's to my nervous system and stuff like that causes depression and anxiety. And also, as many people see in POTS and all this too, there's usually depression, anxiety, and mental illness intertwined with that. So I do struggle from ADHD. That's kind of like, I don't know if it's genetic, but depression, anxiety, PTSD, and pretty sure that's it. PMDD. I'm like, wait, let me list my
yeah,
my things.
yeah. Well, more and more. I mean, I work with people with ADHD, and
Yeah,
my children are both, on the spectrum somewhere in there. And
yeah.
I take from the mindset that I don't think that's a deficit. I think that that is a power,
No,
and
I yes.
it's learning how to operate in a system that isn't fully functional, ready to have all of that input, because it's like super
Yes.
power input, and it can be
Yeah.
really focused. And there's just so many ways. So I never see that as a deficit. But
Me
you
neither.
know, in a place where it's not totally ready for your high functioning abilities, it can be very challenging. And that's kind of like
Exactly.
your generation, they're having that struggle, I think, more than any.
Oh, yes.
The world hasn't been set up for how high functioning you are. That's, I think, the reality of it.
Oh my
So,
gosh, definitely.
your age group, I think it's even more important
Yes.
to get the nutrients at the
Hmm.
right time. And that's kind of like where I could
Yeah.
say, basically, there's three areas that I could say that you and everybody in the whole age range. I mean, I have clients who are 21 all the way up to 75 is my oldest, and every age group in between. And every age
Hmm.
group has its particular thing that they struggle with very clearly. You can kind of break it down and say, I know what the age group in the 20s are struggling with, which is different than the 30s, the 40s, the 50s,
40s,
the
50s, the 60s, 70s. And then, oh my gosh, this opens my eyes so much. I definitely need to look more into this, like beyond just this, because it's so cool. In a way, it's cool that this is how our body works. And
Well, can I leave you with three things? Are we at the end of the time?
kinda, I just
Okay.
want to, I don't know. I was just trying, what was I going to say? Let me remember. Oh, I wanted to touch about the stimulants. Um, so my mom at a young age, when I was diagnosed around age 5 or 6, one of the things my mom decided to do before putting me on the Western medicine medications is she tried the natural path and the Eastern, is that Eastern,
Naturopath, not necessarily. I mean,
she,
they
so yeah, I mean, like, I was taking medicine, like 10 pills a day, but it was through like, it wasn't like,
they look at the micronutrients. Basically, what's what it is. They're looking at all the minerals and the vitamins, and they're going to dose it in that way to as medicine. So it's not
yep.
necessarily
And I went gluten free. And yes, okay, that makes so much more sense now. And from now, I did have a monster phase freshman year where I would strictly be drinking monsters. And my mom like begged me not to, but I was paying for them with my own monies. But I've come off of that, realizing, oh my gosh, that is bad. And they started tasting horrible. So
good.
that's good on them for
Yay.
making it taste horrible. I've never been into coffee. Coffee is disgusting. My mom said coffee is disgusting until you have children. But I see it all over. Even now, like my 13-year-old brother is obsessed with the new prime drinks.
Mm,
And I'm just like, he has ADHD too. And
yeah.
you can see how much that like boosts him in the worst way possible. When he doesn't need the extra boost.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're identifying what most of my clients and most anybody in my field are going to find out is that people tend to push themselves out of balance with the very things that are causing the imbalance. That
Mm-hmm.
they gravitate to, they think it's bringing balance, but it's the very thing that continues to push them out of balance. That's like a
Yeah.
normal tendency. Human tendency is our whole organism is designed to bring, heard this word in chemistry, homeostasis.
Yep.
That every function in our body is designed in that way, but we're also polarity. We're positive and negative charges down to the ions, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I do.
Okay, so everything in us is ions. Everything is a positive and negative charge. And so we try to gravitate toward things to bring that balance back. We try to, but when we are
Yeah.
out of balance, we keep going to the thing that is pushing us out of balance.
Oh my.
And that's where,
Oh.
I come in. That's where my job is I can see that, in the
Mm-hmm.
things that I do, I can say, oh, this is where you're out of balance. And then I can start bringing and helping you pull that balance.
Go back.
Ultimately, what you want to do.
Oh my goodness, you are awesome. That
Thank
is so that is so cool. Oh my gosh, I need to look so much more into that. Like I feel like people say that and then they don't. I am actually right when we're done, I'm going to look it up and go into it more because I'm actually interested in looking into that for what I've been struggling with.
Yeah,
Because for
absolutely.
now, yeah, I've been doing like PT, but I have to go to like the brain cert, like I have to go to like the cardiologist, everything. And as much as they help, sometimes you just need more like natural ways to fix the solution. I mean, fix the problem. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and natural, it's like it's trying to get the body, what Ayurveda does at the baseline is trying to
yeah,
restore the body to do what it already knows how to do.
yeah,
It's innate intelligence. I mean, it's
mm,
highly intelligent physical thing.
yeah,
I can leave you with three things that you
yeah.
and all of your audience can, start right away. They can give a little try, and it's bringing that rhythm back. So this whole system is biorhythmic.
Mm-hmm.
The sun rising, the sun setting, that whole thing, we have this rhythm. And when we push out of that rhythm, immediately that's when we push out of balance because we're going against it.
Yeah.
So, first and most important thing I think that anybody can do is never ever skip lunch. That's the highest metabolism. And what do most people do? They skip
Skip
and eat through.
lunch.
I know kids will
Yeah.
do it because they hate the lunches. I know that, or they don't want to eat in front of their friends, or all of
That's
those
my
things
goal.
that
That's
happen.
my goal this year is to make my own lunch.
And adults do it because they're working through lunch. or they're eating and eating at the same time. As
Yes.
soon as you're doing something else and eating, watching TV, driving, doing a video game, your system is not digesting. There's two
Yeah.
systems at play. There's the parasympathetic nervous
Hmm.
system, which is rest and digest, and there's the
Yeah.
sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight or drive, or it's the brain thing.
Yeah.
As soon as that system is on, there's no digestion happening. And remember what I said about
Yeah.
those 7 layers?
Hmm.
They're never going to absorb into any of those systems. They're going to become toxins. That's how we get
Yeah.
disease. When we don't absorb the food, it becomes toxic in the body and it doesn't come out in the elimination system.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
And,
want to interrupt you quick. We have 1 minute left. It's counting
okay.
down.
All right. So eat lunch,
Yeah.
spend time eating it. That's the number one thing I can tell you. I have some program offers if I can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Definitely.
you can do a 30-minute free strategy session with me so I can talk about some of the things. I can do a
Hmm.
survey of where your imbalances are. And if you sign up through this podcast, you mentioned Avery, I'm going to give you a constitutional and imbalance. I'm going to show you what that is. I'm going to send you a food list for your imbalance so you can, pick and choose off of there the best food sources. I'm going to give you a meditation, a breathing exercise to help with any kind of, emotional, reading, or sleeping
Yeah.
imbalances that you might have. And you can email me at support@yogaforbalance.online. So support@yoga, FOR, balance.online. My name is Christina Sirgun, Sirgun, Powers. You can find me on Facebook. I